Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of Retail Resilient. We teach car dealers all over the country how to sell more cars and make more money using social media platforms. Like I said, who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Check us out at retailresilient.com or send us a message in the chat bar on the Auto Hub Show.
This is Barry Jordan from whitegloveperformancegroup.com. I'd like to take a few moments of your time to share how we can make you more profitable. Dealerships all over North America are using our cloud-based power dialing platform, Touchpoint, to manage their outbound sales-generating phone calls. With Touchpoint, your agents can make up to 50 calls an hour. Leave a voicemail, send an email with a link to a video or to your website, all with a click of the mouse. We specialize in empowering your teams to make the calls that make the sales. How can Touchpoint help you increase profit? Check us out, whitegloveperformancegroup.com.
Hi everyone, I'm John Latka from Automotive Business Solutions, where we help dealerships build more productive and proactive by appointment sales cultures through our Performance Management Partnership Program. So, if you want to increase your sales volume by 2 to 3 sales per month per salesperson, call our toll-free number, 877-708-8484 for a free consultation.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for our sponsors. And love Gail's new video, by the way. A couple of books, Old Retail, New Retail, What the Bleep, Luxury Retail and Digital Management, and Resurrecting Retail. So these are basically more generic books, but really I felt when you look at retail and customer experience and the new normal, you really got to look outside auto for ideas. So those are just a couple books. Go ahead, Jeff. You're muted, man. Jeff.
I can't read
Jeff,
it.
we can't hear you, man.
You know, this is the new normal. This is the new normal with everyone being on Zoom and half of us being on mute, right?
Exactly. So the new normal is a little bit of the Zoom, but also just from a disclaimer point of view. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, how about now? So what I was saying is I learned from that video of the lady that you should not be looking at the camera, you should be looking away because it carries more impact. So my apologies, I did the one thing, the giant new normal faux pas, I did not take it off of mute because I muted it when I was coughing. So anyways, good morning and welcome. And just a quick disclaimer that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of our guest speakers and guests, do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Auto Hub Show or Ian Nethercott or Jeff Polo or anybody else associated with us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Ian.
And now we're doing the new normal in retail. So that's the focus of the show. We have 3 exciting guests. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we shall interview our guests, and luckily enough today we have nobody new, so they're all familiar to everybody. Our first guest we haven't seen in at least 1 week is Sue Finneran, who's the Super Sue Finneran, the faculty member at the Automotive Business School of Canada, former dealer at Finneran Hyundai in Courtenay, BC, which of those who don't know where it is, it's that way. And Sue, introduce yourself, and we'd like you to share a story of an old normal versus a new normal, please.
Well, good morning. Awesome to be here 2 weeks in a row. How lucky am I? Anyway, so obviously I'm a PhD or was a PhD, a dealer kid. Papa has a dealership and worked in General Motors. We had a General Motors store. And then of course, when everything hit the fan, we became Hyundai. And so was in the Hyundai business and I got bored. I wasn't having fun anymore. So I decided to get out and some of the things we're going to talk about today led to that decision. And I'm at the Automotive Business School of Canada and I'm having a blast. So thrilled to be here. One thing that's really different and when we talk about, because now I get to teach all of the new up and coming great people in this business. And that is work-life balance and the way that, they perceive work. When I went to work in the automotive business, we worked bell to bell. You worked 6-7 days a week. You didn't take a holiday. The car business was your life. And it's not like that anymore. Today, work-life balance is huge and family is massive. And it's just a different time. So there you go.
Well, thank you. And that's very true. We've actually talked about this before, that the old car business was the fact that your life was there and you got celebrated to close up the store at 11:30 at night because you did that one delivery, because you forced somebody to stay there even though they didn't want to, and deliver the car. So thank you very much for that comment. Secondly, we have our fantastic platinum sponsor, Gail Rubenstein, founder and CEO. I'm going to say it this time officially. It's the I Am Retail Resilient. And we call her our platinum sponsor, but a Facebook maven. And she's from somewhere near New York City, because every time I look her up on LinkedIn, it'll say Pennsylvania, it'll say New York City area, it'll say Hushka Bajushki somewhere else. Gail, say hi and please share something from you from a new normal versus an old normal.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gail, for those of you that don't know me. Before I talk about new normal versus old normal, my new normal in my personal life, I became an American citizen on Saturday. So I'm a Canadian and an American citizen, which I've waited a very long time to have this privilege. So that is a new normal for me. But in regards to the car business and working with the Canadians and the Americans, I would say a new normal right now is car dealers. New normal is I only have used cars and I don't have new cars. So that's something that I spend my days doing in the new normal is, what do I pay for a used car, right? Because they're paying market value and then they're selling them for 20% over market value. And not really having very much new car inventory, not knowing when their new car inventory is coming, or getting very limited inventory. So that is a new normal right now, very new.
For sure.
And it is what it is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Speaking of LinkedIn, I saw a post the other day of a big GM dealer in the States, and he shows a picture of his new car lot, and it's empty, literally. And over the entrance to the lot is a blocker, some Chevy Trax. And somebody commented, "What do you need a blocker for?" So it's just empty. And last but not least is Troy Glenn, a storyteller, coach, and director of sales for Western Canada at CDK Global, from very far from here, Surrey, British Columbia, which I can see from my window, just like Sarah Palin can see Russia. Troy, can you tell us more about yourself and new versus old normal story, please?
Sure. Well, again, thanks for having me on, guys. I do work in the car business for CDK, but I came from 22 years in the hospitality business. So, unlike Stu, I'm not, it wasn't part of my previous world, but because of that, I sort of come into this without any sort of preconceived notions, and it's given me a little bit of background, and especially in this new normal era. And looking at the new versus old, I think that dealers have been learning how to face new normals for a long time now, and not just now in the pandemic, which I know we're going to beat to death in the next hour, but looking back about 6 years when I first started at CDK, we were selling digital advertising on our Cobalt websites. And I went into a dealer, GM dealer, and tried to explain to him, hey, listen, you need to shift your spend from a newspaper into digital. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're spending $12,000 a week on newspaper ads. And if you shifted that to digital, you get, 8, 10x, whatever we were giving for ROI at the time. And he said, well, yeah, but then I wouldn't be in the paper. And so I think what people are realizing is it's this whole shift, and even Brian Benstock's been saying this for 10 years plus 20 years almost, is that there is no such thing as normal anymore. and you have to adapt and change, or if you want to survive.
That's very true. I final thing I'll say on that is I certainly remember the days of Tuesday afternoon working on the ads and Thursday morning waiting for the Auto Trader guys. So definitely, Ian, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for all those comments and welcome. We all know that there are probably hundreds, if you could pick, of the top 3 disturbances that we that are in business today versus 2 years ago. What would those be? And let's start with Gail.
Top 3 disturbances? Can I just
Yeah.
name one? Well,
Yeah,
obviously the one thing that people don't like talking about is COVID. You know, that has definitely interrupted and changed the way we do business. And that, you know, so dealers had to, when that happened, dealers had to become accustomed to new safety measures at their dealership, allowing employees to work remotely from home. And that was a huge disruption for them. I mean, we had plenty of dealers call us and ask us, what do I do? What is my process? How do I sell cars during a pandemic? So that was a very big disruption. Am I supposed to give you 3 or can I just give you 1?
You can just give us one if you'd like, but if you want to do more than one,
I'll stick with that one because it has altered the way our clients operate their dealerships. And it has drastically changed a lot of the things that they do. And we've kind of helped them walk through new processes, new procedures, new ways of doing business. But it kind of falls in landscape with digital retailing, right? Digital retailing was already a thing, but the minute COVID hit, it was like, okay, now I'm really going to do something about it. So that was a huge disruption for them.
Fantastic. Troy?
Well, I mean, to piggyback off that, obviously COVID bringing people kicking and screaming, whether they want to or not, into the digital world to sell their vehicles. But, you know, we used to have, and there's, in the car business, for those that don't know, there's not just 12 months, sometimes there's 13 months. But the reality is it's not even months at all. It's tire season, spring clear out, new model launch, truck month, back to school, year-end blowout. Those are the seasons that really affect car dealers, but those don't exist anymore. I mean, given the fact that there's no new car inventory, we haven't seen any of those big OEM pushes right now. So I think, interestingly enough, the whole pandemic situation has really disrupted the way that even dealers market. And now they're looking more to folks like, you know, Gail's organization, because it's not about the traditional, you know, way of doing it. It's all been upended now.
I actually have a question for you, Troy. Is one thing that I predict will never change. There's actually 13 seasons, 12 month-end panic and 1 year-end panic. Will that ever change?
Month-end panic every month, Jeff.
You know,
every month.
Yeah, the 30th, everyone trying to close deals. I mean, we're in the same boat. That's just the nature of the business. But, you know, the other one too that I had, since we were supposed to pick 3, I'll take a couple more. Ride sharing, and Amazon. So a friend of mine at a dealership, their biggest customers right now are new Uber and Lyft drivers, and they're not selling cars to first-time car buyers as much. They're seeing that the 22 to 26-year-old person that's coming in to buy their first vehicle isn't coming in anymore. But they are seeing a massive upswing in people trying to lease or purchase vehicles for use in auto sharing. And that's also a consumer drift where we're seeing people getting out of the car market as well, because it's so inexpensive to take an Uber versus insuring a car, Jeff, especially in BC, as you know. But the other side of that is Amazon. So another colleague of mine went to work for Mercedes-Benz, and his whole specialty was sprinters. But they're backlogged on sprinters for 2 years because everyone is in the delivery business these days because of the new normal, where people want curbside and they want delivery. And right now, if you want to try to get a small van for that purpose, you're waiting almost 2 years for a new one.
Wow.
Easy. Sue?
Well, one that bureaucratic influences. So, you know, things like the CERB, and then down in the States of whatever you call it, Gail, where they've paid a lot of our employees to not be there. And I talked to a lot of people, and they're trying to get their people back, and they're going, well, why would I?
Yep.
The
The income, it's Sue, in the States, the income's the same way, same thing.
Yeah, it's that's been a big influence for a lot of staffing, obviously, and also social influence. And we're just starting to see it, and not necessarily because of COVID, but just social influence. So whether it's the environment, we've got, I live on Vancouver Island, and we're pretty green over here. And, people saying now, well, how can people drive pickup trucks? They don't use them. And so kind of people starting to shame people's choices in cars. And, that's going to be something that's up and coming. Kids don't love cars like we did. And I think part of that is because, our dads worked on the cars in the driveway. We went and we would help, give them a wrench or whatever it was. And so we grew up to learn to love cars, really. We got to sit on his seat and drive, whereas now you would never do that. Can you imagine? Really. And so they haven't developed that same passion that a lot of us did for the automobile. And they don't go out and get their driver's license on their 16th birthday. They're getting it because their parents are tired of driving them around at 19 or whatever it is. People live at home longer, so they don't necessarily need their own car. It's just, there's a lot of change, and different things to think of.
Well, it's funny that both you and Troy mentioned that about the younger kids. I mean, when you live in a bigger city here in Vancouver, we're actually discovering what people in New York and Philadelphia and very likely Boston or even Toronto knew a long time ago, that you don't need a car. And I have one daughter that got her license at 16, and the other one who's in her 20s still has no interest in driving. So that's because they've got trains and Ubers and everything else. So, we've all talked about how the world's been turned upside down, and then we got pandemics and staff purges and government subsidies and customer demand for cars that nobody ever dreamed, and lack of chips. Is there such a thing as a normal anymore? And will there be a normal? And Sue, you're staring right at me, I can see, so please answer that one.
Will there be a normal? Well, I guess our normal will just change. One thing I love about car dealers in general is they're extremely, for the most part, very resilient. And they find ways around issues very, very quickly, well, because they have to. And so, our normal is constantly changing. I think it's changing a lot faster than it did before. But yeah, and I was up in the interior talking to Mark Bannister Automotive Group a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about inventory levels and how great it is that he really only has a month to a month and a half supply, and what effect that's having, obviously, on his floor plan and lot damage and even lot management. And that, we'll get used to having, hopefully we'll get used to having lower levels of inventory as we train our customers to factory order. And, that will be a big shift. I think that will become part of the new normal.
Yeah, what does scare me, I have to admit, from what you said, is manufacturers are, you're talking about pent up demand. They need to open plants, and as soon as there's supply, I got a terrible fear that new normal that you're just talking about is going to be the old normal, because they're going to say, well, something, if you want an F-150 Lightning electric, you're going to have to take 25 of the other ones. And they're going to do it. And we're going to be back to the old way. Maybe I'm wrong. Gail, what's your opinion on this? I need you to give me 5 examples now.
5 examples. No, I'm on the same page. I'm like, do I have to give 3 examples? I feel like I'm taking a test. I'm on the same page as Sue. If I was still a sales manager at a dealership today, I would really enjoy working because the cash flow is better. There's less inventory. It's turning faster. I would be getting floor plan credits. My grosses would be higher for sure. Like all of my dealers right now have huge front and back end grosses because the supply and demand. And I very much agree with Sue's comment about car dealers being resilient. So the reason why our company is actually named Retail Resilient is it came from that. So being in the car world for 25 years, I was like, these guys are the most resilient people I have ever met in my life. When something gets thrown in their way, they don't care. They'll find a way to sell. Like the world could be ending and a car dealer would find a way to stay in business. They just would. So I think it's fascinating watching them because they're really good at I call it the pivot. Like, it's like, bam, they get hit with something and they pivot and they'll keep doing it and keep doing it. Car dealers are just like, it's in their blood, I think. They're just born that way. So I'm very much on the same page with Sue here.
Yeah, no, we definitely, we're like a running back. We can pivot like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
Troy, your input on this.
You know, yeah, so I'm going to offer a little bit of a different perspective here. So there's that whole quote that's incorrectly, I think, attributed to Darwin, which is not the strongest of the species that survive or the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. And to Gail's point, dealers have just been mashed with change quite a bit, and some of them haven't resisted or bounced back as well. And some of them changed for a little bit, and then as soon as they were able to, went back to the old ways of doing things. We're seeing a lot of dealer consolidation because independent dealers maybe are just change fatigued. I don't know. We're seeing a lot of people like Brian Benstock, again, to use an example, where it's like, okay, so to Gail's point, we've got no new inventory this time. We've got no used inventory next time, whatever it is. As long as we've got ourselves diversified enough, we should be okay. And I think, you know, we will see another challenge. I mean, 20 years ago, 9/11 happened, and that killed my industry at the time, which was the hospitality industry. The pandemic affected globally everybody, but you know, we've also had the automotive crash when the economy broke back in 2008, and who knows what the next one's going to be. Oil could go to $200 a barrel, or it could go to $10 a barrel. Both of them could destroy an economy. Either you can't afford gas, or you can't have no jobs. And so I think the idea of being resilient is not even adapting to what's getting thrown at you in the new normal. It's being prepared for the next thing that's coming that we don't know what it is yet. And I think that this pandemic has forced a lot of dealers and organizations like ours to say, okay, we can't expect this to run like a train for the next 12 years. Something's going to happen in the next 3 to 5. It could be an outside disruptor. It could be an economic force. It could be a global event. But whatever it is, something's going to happen. And if we're sort of stable and ready to handle that, we'll be good.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, you brought up something too that's a new normal I have to think of, as you mentioned, Brian Benstock. 3 years ago, who heard of him? Who heard of El Patron? The well-known people in the car business were the people that produced, did big conferences and everything else. So look at how that's changed. I'd mentioned another person, but
well, before you go off on that, what's interesting about those guys is if you go back 20 years, it was the local car guy that was a celebrity. So it's Wacky Bob on the corner, and Joe's Car Lot, who's been on the corner forever, who's got the crazy suit and everything must go, and there's inflatable apes on the roof. Brian Benstock and El Patron and some of these other influencers, I guess, are the new sort of celebrities in our business because they're showing the way how to do business versus just trying to make the most noise.
Yeah, it's very true. I actually took a seminar at a convention I went to, and it said, "What's the real cost of that gorilla on the roof?" Turned out it was a lot of money. Ian.
With the growth of online sales and home deliveries, do you think the new car industry will be able to support the dealership mega buildings that are in fashion today? These, Taj Mahals that everyone seems to be building. What do you think, Sue?
Well, one of the reasons of my 150 to get out of retail was that I was looking at having to build a new building. And so when you're looking at spending, millions of dollars, and I'm looking at my age and where I'm at, et cetera. And I was looking forward, are you 10 years? Are we 15 years? I've been out of retail for 3 years now. And looking forward 10 years, I'm going, is that building going to have the same value that it has today? And what purpose will it serve if it's not a car dealership? I believe that we won't need the big buildings that we have. Although you know, millions of dealer groups can't be wrong because they're still out building them like crazy. But is that the manufacturer's influence still? I don't know. But what will we use all of these buildings and facilities for is what I'm curious about.
Well, there's a couple different ones that you should take a look at. Number one, if you're ever in Seattle, there's the Honda Toyota in the same building location downtown, which is kind of interesting. I think it's the only one I've ever seen where they're in the same building, same service drive right next to each other. It's kind of interesting. The other one that just got built in Toronto is the Downtown Auto Group, where they put, I think, 6 or 8 stores in one building. It just opened, I think, last weekend. Which is a massive development, but I think it's all the franchises in one place. So it's kind of interesting to see that happen. And I know it's also been the case in other big cities, including, I think there's one in LA that was like 12 or 13 stores in one building too. So I think that the new model is less floor space in terms of parking lot and more consolidation, which is more the European model. So I think that's really interesting. Gail, what do you think?
Brick and mortar is interesting, and having those buildings. I mean, we operate we have just over 10 full-time employees now at Retail Resilient, and everyone said, well, are you going to get an office building? Get an office building. And I said, why? We all work 100% remotely. And we teach our clients we literally teach car dealers how to operate remotely. So using social media channels and incorporating them into their process so that their people can work from home and they can dial in through VPN networks and they can sell from home and they can. So I'm not a huge fan of, you know, people investing in these big brick and mortar buildings. I don't think they're needed. I think the cost of overhead is just absolutely, I think it's astronomical. And I think businesses in general, whether they're auto dealers or any business, can operate more efficiently and have a better cash flow if they think outside of the box. And I don't think in the box is in a dealership anymore. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I actually was visiting a dealership a couple of years ago. They just sold used vehicles. They have no physical lot. They sell out of an office tower in a nondescript area of Edmonton, and everything is an order item. And this was pre-pandemic.
I mean, look at Carvana.
Yeah.
Carvana's a fantastic business model, and they have, you know, their gumball machines in set locations. People order online, the cars are shipped, they go where they go. But they don't need, you know, big, massive, they have them in certain locations, but I mean, they service the whole country. They don't need that many buildings to store cars to service the whole country. But I don't know.
Well, you know, a great example too is Tesla, which is selling like hotcakes and growing like a weed. Their showrooms are, you know, all the ones I've seen, the biggest one I ever saw was 3 cars. And, you know, that's certainly a change on that. And, you know, I think dealers that are putting multiple franchises under one roof is a great way of doing it. And then we have examples of dealers. One here built a 200,000 square foot Toyota store, and they got room for a sushi parlor there. And but boy, that's a lot of money to pay for. Yeah. So moving right along. Sorry, Ian, you had something?
Troy hasn't answered yet.
That's okay. That's all right. You know, again, a lot of it's already been said. We're going to see, I think, multiple OEMs under one roof in some cases. But, you know, that building that Jeff was talking about, that group owns 26 stores. A single mom and pop is not going to be able to get their Toyota and Honda under one roof because they have no influence with the OEMs at that volume. The larger dealer groups will. So it's kind of it's going to be a select club that are going to be able to consolidate like that. But I think the building of the new ones, especially in Canada, we don't have dealers that do the volume. Like some, you know, even mid-range dealers in the US selling 2,000 cars a month, they need a big building because they have 80 salespeople on the floor and 40 F&I offices and you know, 18 people working in accounting. Those are required for that volume. But I think as the sort of distribution model changes a little bit, we'll see less and less of that for sure.
Thanks, Troy. Yeah.
Thank you, Troy. My apologies. I forgot all about you there for a moment, but that's okay. I'm I'm doing what we always accuse people of doing, is being 3 steps ahead of myself. So this is the speed round. So old normal or new normal, Troy, lead responses.
I wish it was newer than it is. Still too old for its own good, but changing every day.
Why?
You know, I'm looking for a car right now. And I went online to price configure, and I got a call within 90 seconds. That was great. I sent an email to another dealership. I didn't get a response at all for 2 days. And the email response was, hey, call me at the store. So there's a lot of work to be done out there.
Thank you. Gail, SEM, SEO, new normal, old normal. One question.
So some SEM, SEO, like digital retailing, and I don't know, some of it's new normal, some of it's old. Some dealers are more advanced than others. Some are living in like the 1980s. I feel like it's new and old. I mean, dealers are all over the spectrum there with SEO and SEM and marketing and where they think they should be investing their advertising dollars. It's all over the map right now.
Yeah, we don't have to ask why. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think SEM and SEO is going to become less important as businesses like Gail's tick up, where algorithmic modeled advertising is going to take over. You're not even going to need to Google what you're looking for because it's already in your feed. And that's going to start to change. It's going to be less about the traditional SEO and more about being in the right place in social.
Well, I do have to say, in my chats with Ian, because Ian is certainly in that is in the digital world business, and as soon as you mention the word algorithmic to it, most dealers, they're gone. As soon as your presentation says algorithmic, they're gone.
It's so true, Troy. It is, everything we do is for dealers is based on an algorithm. Everything. It's based on the Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, everything algorithm. And it's so bullseye targeted and cookied that Facebook knows everything everyone does. Their ad, like the cars right in the front of that person's face all the time.
Yeah. Well, you made a good point there, Jill. I'm looking at Troy and I see he's sitting in a white gaming chair. And I'm sitting in you can't see it. I just bought a chair.
Nice.
You can't see it, it's dead. But I just bought a chair and I looked one place for a chair. My Facebook has more chairs now than I could imagine. It's just ridiculous.
Yep.
So Sue, old or new normal?
Can I ask a question on that?
You can ask anything you want.
To your point, do you think that there might almost be overload, that we might have that happen where people just start kind of ignoring because of exactly what you just said? Like I looked for a C-Class Mercedes, all of a sudden 16 vendors, Zoom, Vroom, Carvana's hitting my social network. I'm just going to be immune to it. Do you think we could go to that extreme?
Well, when you look at metrics, and it's interesting because I look at metrics with real dealer websites every day. It's always interesting when you look at organic, you look at advertise, and then you look at by advertiser. And the thing that's really interesting, specifically using Facebook as an example, is the return on that investment of ad spend. I'm not saying other things, but just ad spend on Facebook. I mean, you really have to be constantly looking at what you're doing there, because when you look at the amount of traffic trying to catch people to buy something versus someone searching or someone actually actively having a conversation, it's vastly different. I mean, I have conversations every single day with dealers where they're going, okay, I'm spending all this money on Facebook, but I'm only getting XYZ amount of leads. Well, what are you advertising? Like a lot of them don't really think enough about, okay, well, what's the mindset of that person who they're trying to convert? Like what's the mindset? Are they hanging out on Facebook doing whatever and they're seeing a bunch of ads for cars? That's not really someone necessarily in the market for a car. So it's not blaming Facebook. I mean, they're still getting some result, but it's a question of where are you spending those dollars to get those consumers that are actually actively looking versus just throwing money, which I think in a lot of cases dealers are doing. which is what they did with newspapers. So it's not new behavior, it's just digital. But
Stephen, what's
the opportunity-
interesting about your comment, I find that very interesting because I live on Facebook doing ads for car dealers 12 hours a day with our whole team. So what I find fascinating is Facebook has like 3 columns, and you can go into the 3rd column and tell them, I only want my ad served to people that are like real deep in the sales cycle. So they've already been cookied for looking for financing for a car. They've already been cookied for reaching out to a dealership. So I kind of teach these dealers, hey, so shift away from, like, if you really want buyers, shift your money away from that, VDP traffic, and go to the people that are ready to buy, which is one thing a lot of car dealers don't know how to do. Like, they hire these marketing agencies, give them like loads of money, and then they don't know where it goes. And I'm like, let me show you, because there is a way to cookie those people that are way deeper in the sales cycle. But I think, to your point, yeah, at some point there are people that are going to get annoyed and be like, no, I'm going to shut this off. Like, I don't want to see 16 Mercedes ads. So I'm going to how you could unfollow or put someone on snooze for 30 days. Like, there's people I put on snooze for 30 days because I don't want to look at the stuff anymore. I'm like, oh my God, this is so
I'm aware
annoying.
of that, Gail. You snooze. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't snooze.
I agree
I think
100%. It's all about having the right person advising you on the spend. I mean, if you have a budget of $100 and you're spending $90 on something that's got 0 result, why are you continuing to do that? You really need to look at better ways to get that ROI. I mean, I've always been a fan of Google for that reason, but there's other ways to do that. I mean, you've got to look at what's the best for your market. I mean, that person searching for a car, and to Gail's point, farther down the funnel is a much better person than someone who's just hanging out, who's not even in the market at all. They're just seeing ads, right?
Yeah. So as a car dealer, it's important to know the difference. And I would say 90% of our clients didn't know until I taught it to them.
Exactly.
They're like, oh, I had no clue.
Yeah.
So
Facebook will take your money, don't worry.
Oh yeah, they will suck your money. They will take it all. Mark Zuckerberg is a smart man.
Troy.
No. I was just going to say the other new normal thing, though, is when you have organizations like Gail's and Ian's, it's not like the ROI part is different, because if you're a dealer, when they go to buy an ad, all they care about is how many leads did I get. They don't care about what the quality of the leads are. In a lot of cases, a lot of dealers are more savvy now. Please forgive me for generalizing, but what they look at is, I only got 45 leads out of this instead of the 150 I got on my last thing, so I'm going to throw it in the garbage. But not to realize that those 45 are way more down funnel than the 150 garbage leads were before. So the new normal is not even they're looking at the wrong metrics. We have to educate people on looking at the right metrics and the quality of those metrics too.
Yeah, I saw a post, I don't know who, on LinkedIn on Friday, is basically saying, should dealers hire a data scientist? Like, if you're a dealer group, you should hire a data scientist, because now you're being bombarded with so much data. How do you use it properly to make sure you're being effective? And I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point.
And don't forget to lean on your vendors either. I mean, if you have a vendor that's helping you and you don't understand, you need to get clarity. You need to understand, like, okay, what is it that I'm doing right? What is it I'm doing wrong? I can handle the truth. Tell me how I should, get better at this. I mean, don't just spend money to spend money, right?
Yeah, I have a suggestion for a new position for people, and that should probably, and unlike me, which is joking, I think dealer groups should be hiring a person whose job it is to weed out everything and actually, what's the best term? Triage the best solutions for everything. But that's my 2 bits. So Sue, you're sitting there going, okay, I got to say something. Human resources, not just HR, human resources. Is it the old normal of the car business, or is there a new normal?
There's
I think
HR in the
it's
car
going to become
business.
more of the new normal, because again, we're in that the people coming up, they're more touchy-feely. They have people now are allowed to show their emotions and allowed to talk about personal issues and personal problems where, years ago we left that at home. Well, you tried to, but employee engagement is going to become more and more important because, of course, it's hard to find fantastic people. And when you get them, you want to hang on to them. And so I think human resources becomes more important because we're investing more in great people so that we can hold them on. Young people today, when we started our careers, we were like, I'm going to work at that one place and I'm going to be there for 30 or 40 years and I'll retire and that'll be that. But now, if people aren't happy, they move on because there's somebody else that's going to pick them up. If you're great, if you're a good employee, and also career path is massive for young people. They want to be able to come into a position and they want to be able to see a charted career path as they move forward. And of course, human resources and HR becomes really, really important, moving that person along and all of the processes and steps that go with it. So yeah, for me, it becomes more the new normal.
Thank you very much. So have customers really changed? So Gail, I'm going to throw that to you.
Yeah, customers have changed drastically in terms of their buying behavior. I mean, oh my God, how they like to buy, doing everything online, how they want to be treated, how they want VIP service, how they don't want to be bothered by the car dealer, I want to go in. So I like to go in and shop for a car and drive it. But I'm in the car business. And I think, when I survey my friends who ask me about this all the time, they're like, no, I don't want to go to the car dealer. I want to go online. I want to buy my car. I want to get the deal done. And I don't want to talk to anyone because I don't like them. And I just don't want to deal with them. I want everything online with the price and the paperwork and everything. And that's just, to them, that's normal. To me, the normal is you go in, you talk to the guy, you have a cup of coffee with him, but it's a different perspective for being in the business and for being in the business for a long time. So, digital retailing is totally the new normal. And I feel like that's the way it is. The old school days are gone.
So to expand on that, what do these people do that say, I don't want to go in, I want to pick my car online, don't want to see anybody, they get their car, what happens if they just don't like it? Because I haven't met a dealer yet that takes it back like Amazon and says, no problem, just package it up and drop it off at the truck.
Well, they go in. Dealers are making them come in to do the paperwork, but I think that the dealerships, actually, I know from the dealerships that we work at that make it fun. So something we do with a lot of our dealers is social selling. So they make it fun and they have a different consumer experience now when the customer actually physically comes in. So that it really is fun. Like there's a red carpet, they get to take pictures with their car, they get to tag them on Facebook, they friend their salesperson. So they're trying to create this whole different experience so that those people that do 90% of the transaction in the, online on the front end, when they spend that 10% of time at the dealership, it's actually fun. That's kind of how they're accommodating the customer, so that they don't have those issues of like, we're not going to take that car back, or you could trade it in, but you just lost $4,000 because you drove off the lot. But that's kind of what we've noticed dealers are transitioning to or moving to in terms of process to accommodate that huge majority of the population that just wants to do business in that manner. So,
Troy, no, Sue, we'll go Sue. F&I, old normal or new normal?
Well, that depends on who you talk to, right? We have some dealers I've heard out in the eastern side of Canada that are taking away their F&I managers, which to me, I'm like, what?
Yeah, hold on.
And they're basically going down to the one person sales philosophy. So you just deal with one person. You don't have a sales manager. You don't have an F&I manager. You come in and the person you speak to does the whole entire thing. Now, I can't imagine that your closing ratio on products would be high enough I don't know. I think the jury's still out. For me, F&I is becoming more and more and more important all the time as we get, especially, you know, because of Car Gurus and Auto Trader with it. Is it a good deal? Is it a great deal? You know, as our pricing becomes more one price, I think we are headed to more of a one price model. Maybe right now we're in a bit of a blip because you can kind of ask whatever you want because there isn't enough supply. But once we're through this blip, you know, a year from now, I think F&I just becomes more and more important all the time. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, I do have to say something that would scare me, not so much in Canada, but in the States of going to that one person. Because I know in so many states, compliance is a big deal in F&I.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine somebody being trained to know everything about every car, about making this a great sales experience, about the proper introduction to service and accessories, and then to make sure that their paper's covered and the dealership isn't exposed because they did not offer them critical illness insurance because the customer was sick of spending 17 hours with the same person.
But Jeff, as we go through, you know, you've got customers coming in that are more educated than a lot of the salespeople they're talking to about the vehicle because they've done 90% of the research at home. They've already made their decision when they come into the store. So that counseling of the sales process isn't quite as vital as it used to be, right? Then as we go through, we're now using more of a menu selling. A lot of people are in F&I. So they're using menus. So all of those things are going to be offered. You know, we have tools of the trade that will allow people to do that one-step processing. Plus, and I got to say, old school, we think old school, and we need to turn that shift around. People are very capable, and we need to be able to, you know, allow them to be who they are. We short sell a lot of people. We say, oh, nobody could ever do all that. But believe it or not, they actually can. We did it, right? I've taken a deal from nothing all the way through to the service department. So if I can do it, anybody can.
Oh, you're special though.
Oh yeah, right.
But you know, we talk old normal versus new normal. And you know, Tesla's supposedly this great big new way of selling cars, great way of building cars, great way of cars. The other day I drove by and by accident, I'm in a sketchier part of town and I see a Tesla service department. And there must have been 60 service bays in the Tesla service department. And in the back of my mind, I was shocked because they don't need service. So it's pretty peculiar. So
but I think you're seeing a trend there, Jeff, though. You're seeing a trend where the OEM and digital retail, they're all moving towards more pre-sale for the business office. And also, I mean, Brian said this years ago, I mean, the biggest challenge is, do you need a specific F&I person to do anything but get approval? So that's the other thing that I think a lot of dealers are fighting with, the cost of that. But I don't know. I don't see a specific answer there. But go ahead, Jeff.
Well, actually, I'm getting sick and tired of watching American TV and seeing Barnes and Celino and Barnes and Sam Bernstein law offices for injury, and then the mesothelioma people. So I'm waiting to see ads coming. Did a car dealer not present to you this insurance product? Call me. You might be entitled for money. Final question on the speed round, and I'll put it to Troy. OEMs, are they new or are they still the old way?
Well, I mean, they build the cars, don't they? So they're always going to be required. And with the OEMs, you know, they have to control the brand to some extent. I mean, when websites first came out, some of the stuff that dealers were throwing on the internet was just incredible, and not in a good way. I think if an OEM or a dealer is putting X amount of money back into OEM marketing, and then that OEM marketing is getting flushed down the toilet because the dealer thinks they can do a better job of selling through their website, it's different. I think there's always going to be a place for the OEM. The OEM controlling things like you know, allotments and stuff like that, especially now with inventories. While they still have the control, they have to have the responsibility. And lastly, You know, should OEMs be saying you need to build a building that's triple the size or have a drive-through service bay or all that stuff? I think they need to have a little more latitude with regard to where the market is. Like, can a place like Courtney, does it need to have 3 drive-in service bays, and does it have to have, you know, X amount of square feet, and does it have to totally refurb the whole front end to make it look compliant? I'm not so sure. Downtown Toronto, downtown New York, maybe different story, but ultimately the OEMs build the cars. There's always going to be a place for them until people can start building their own.
I got a good laugh when you said something there. I suddenly, the picture of Oprah popped in my mind, and there was a regional manager going, "You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car." Ian, now.
Well,
Sorry?
Yeah, Ian said it best though. It's like, if you want the really good one, you know, you have to take 15 of the not so good ones, right? And that's where the problem is sometimes I think there's a little bit too much control in that regard, but you know.
And last question is, what's your predictions as we move into, I guess, 2022? Do you think all the stuff's going to remain and trend, or do you think there's going to be some pushback from dealers? Whoever wants to answer.
Come on,
well,
somebody.
My prediction, sort of what's the new normal, is I think over the next 1 to 5 years and beyond, we're going to see more and more consolidation. We're going to see a lot of independent dealers and small groups selling out to slightly larger groups or large corporations. And you know, Sue said it last week, there's less and less independent single point stores out there. I think we'll see more corporations because in the tighter profit margins on the front end, they can survive because of volume. They can consolidate used inventory amongst all their dealerships. They can cross-train their employees, and their HR has people have more of a career path. I think consolidation, there was a big pause on it during the first start of COVID when every group held onto its cash. They didn't know what was going to happen. Now that we've gone through the bulk of it, I think we're going to see a boom in consolidation and buy sells probably over the next 2 years, 3 years that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can answer that question on what my prediction is. That is, I have actually thought about that in the past week or two, what's going to happen in the industry over the next 1 to 5 years. How can our company position ourselves to best help car dealers with whatever is going to happen? And it just seems, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe they don't consolidate and all of a sudden the manufacturers start pumping out cars again and it all goes backwards, or maybe they consolidate. I don't think I have a prediction, but we are fully prepared to pivot with them.
Well, Gail, I have to say, if they consolidate, your job's easy. You're just going to have to present to 25 different people.
Right.
Sue, I mean, you deal with existing dealers and also new people in the industry. What do you think?
I think looking out, not just within a year, but 5-10 years from now, that smart mobility piece, the ride share, the car club, so you're not buying a minivan anymore to commute to work because you got to take the kids to soccer on the weekend. You have subscribed in a ride sharing, and during the week you have a small car, and on the weekends you get the minivan or you get the SUV. And I think that dealers that are willing to adapt and find a way to become a part of that smart mobility are, we really need to be focused on that. And that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at programs like Porsche's done, and I think Open Road has done some programs, there's other companies now trying to figure out this subscription model where you can adapt car ownership to people's needs. Obviously, the car sharing models in big cities, mostly globally. And I see an emergence too of a lot of this micro transport, which I see more and more of now, where people are really getting creative with other modes of transportation, and to the point where some of these, I saw one the other day there, it's a retailer that retails just micro mobility devices of various types, be it that ride on wheel to that, there's all kinds of stuff. But I think that's kind of interesting that you're seeing sort of that different mode of transportation, which you wouldn't have seen 10 years ago, other than little kids on skateboards. I think
Yeah,
you've definitely seen a lot of that too. Any
I-
final thoughts, Jeff?
Sue was saying something.
I was
I
just
could see
gonna
her.
say, to that point, I was up in Kelowna a few weeks ago, and all over Kelowna, like in the middle of nowhere, there'll be an electric scooter just parked there. Like out in the country, and there's an electric scooter, and that's part of their ride share. And it's just by subscription based, and you run your credit card through or punch in your code, and away you go. And then you just leave it when you're done. Same with the car program. And I think COVID put a bit of a hitch in it, because all of a sudden people didn't want to share cars because they wouldn't be sterilized and all that sort of thing. But I think as we come out of the pandemic, the ride share is just going to become a bigger part of our market, whether it be on a scooter or in a car.
And I mean,
Well-
not grocery stores, pharmacies, big pharmacies and big box retailers selling this stuff now, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned car sharing. For a while there, I traveled with a pocket Lysol spray, and if I ever did a car share, or a car hire thing, that I'd sprayed around the inside of the car and waited 2 minutes. So thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. We're getting a lot of great feedback from people, how much they're enjoying it and how many people are listening to us. Our podcast, I don't want to call it views, but listens have gone through the roof. So thank you very much for your support. And my final saying is every show I keep saying, wow, that was the best show yet. I really enjoyed this show, and thank you so much. And really nice to see smiling faces there, and Steve with his colorful headphones on. And Steve, why is it every time that you're on our screen, the same guy walks by that door behind you? Every time.
I plan it
Thank
that
you.
way. I tell him, I'm like, run back and
Exactly.
forth. Look, make it look like we got lots of people here and we're busy.
Run back and forth.
Yeah.
Ian, I'll leave it to you.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have yourself a great week. All the best.